Hi, I'm Grandpa and this is Grandpa's Underworld. I'm going to tell you about some things that wasn't very nice, but they happened anyway. In 1963, 23 elderly patients in New York were injected with live cancer cells by Chester Southam. Now, in 1952, he had done the same prisoners in order to discover the secret of how healthy bodies fight the invasion of malignant cells. The administration of the hospital attempted to cover the study up, but the New York Medical Licensing Board ultimately placed Southam on probation for 1 year. 2 years later, the American Cancer Society elected him their vice president. Okay. In 1963 to 1969, Project Shipboard Hazard and Defense, or SHAD, the Army performed tests that involved spraying ships with biological and chemical warfare agents while thousands of military personnel were aboard the ships. The personnel was not notified of the tests. Chemicals tested on the U.S. military personnel included the nerve gases and sarin, toxic chemicals such as zinc, cadmium, sulfide, and sulfur dioxide, and a variety of biological agents. In 1966, the U.S. Army released bacteria into the tunnels of the New York City subway system as part of a field experiment called a study of the vulnerability of the subway's passengers in New York City to a covert attack with biological agents. The Chicago subway system was also subject to a similar experiment by the Army. Human radiation experiments. Researchers in the United States have performed thousands of human radiation experiments to determine the effects of atomic radiation and radioactive contamination on the human body, usually on people who were sick or powerless. Most of these tests were funded by the military and the U.S. federal government agencies. The experiments involved things like feeding radioactive food to mentally disabled children and inserting radium rods into the noses of school children, deliberately releasing radioactive chemicals all over the U.S. and Canadian cities, measuring the health effects of radioactive fallout from nuclear bomb tests, injecting pregnant women and babies with radioactive chemicals. In the 1990s, Ellen Wilson's reports on radiation testing for the Albuquerque Tribune prompted the creation of the Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments by executive order of President Bill Clinton in order to monitor government tests. It published results in 1995. Wilson later wrote a book called The Plutonium Files. From 1955 to 1960, Sonoma State Hospital in Northern California served as a permanent drop-off location for mentally disabled children diagnosed with cerebral palsy or lesser disorders. Children subsequently underwent painful experimentation without adult consent. Many were given spinal taps for which they received no direct benefit. Reporters of 60 Minutes learned that in these 5 years, the brain of every child with cerebral palsy who died at Sonoma State was removed and studied without parental consent. According to the CBS story, over 1,400 patients died at the clinic. Excuse me. In 1962, the Hanford site again released I-131, stationing subjects along its path to record its effect on them. The AEC also recruited volunteers to ingest milk contained with I-131 during this time. Uranium experiments between 1946 and 47, researchers at the University of Rochester injected uranium-234 and uranium-235 into 6 people to study how much uranium their kidneys could tolerate before becoming damaged. Between 1953 and 57, Dr. William Sweet injected 11 terminally ill and comatose and semi-comatose patients with uranium to determine its viability as a chemotherapy treatment against brain tumors. Dr. Sweet, who died in 2001, maintained that consent had been obtained from the patients and the next of kin. And if you like this, hit the like button. If you'd like to subscribe to our site. If you like our content, hit that button. And if you'd like to hit the bell for the notification for our next show, that'd be wonderful. And that's it for Grandpa's Underworld tonight. See you later. Thank you.